how we took Moodle without editing any core functionality, and we made it look not like Moodle, but use all the functionality of Moodle for our test system.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. No mics. Okay. Oh, I need a mic.
Yeah, because it's projected.
Yeah.
So yes.
Do I have to dance for this? Oh, you know what? I'll do that. Yeah, that's it.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. So I'm going to go into our placement in the server here. So this is a Moodle server, and there's 3 things I did to make this so that it kind of looks like the old system, only it looks better than the old system. Like Aladin explained, Moodle already does quizzes and tests and stuff like that, so we figured, why reinvent the wheel? We have a system that does all the quizzes and tests. Let's just make it look different. It does authentication, there's roles that we can create in there. So in the system, we created roles for graders, for, they're not called teachers, they're called department heads in this system, and so on. So, and again, there are no students in here, although it's based on the student role, because they're not yet students at York when they do these tests. So basically what I did, there's 3 things. I made a theme, I made a course format, and I created a local plugin. The local plugin is for administrative purposes. For example, each time a student applies to do an exam, emails are sent out to administrative staff and so on. That's where the local plugin comes in. It has a whole bunch of different settings like that, predefined emails that are sent out to students and things like that. The other thing is the theme. You can already see the change of the theme. This is the regular homepage for Moodle that people would normally see. As you can tell with the theme I have, it looks slightly different. Yes, we have departments. We just went into the language file, renamed categories into departments. And same thing with courses. It's not called courses. As you can see, there's already an administration dashboard there. Again, based on an administration role for the system, not the Moodle administrator, but an administration role for the system. Those administrators will have this, so they can go click add users. It's its own form, so in other words, it looks like this. It's not the actual add user form that exists in Moodle, because with this form, although the user information is added to the user database in Moodle, it does send out emails, predefined emails and stuff like that they can select in here, which they didn't make any templates yet. And they can assign exams to the students right from here. Okay. Again, it just makes it easier. There's no going into a course, enrolling students, blah, blah, blah. No. It's all right here. You add the student, assign the exam. Student gets the email, they log into the system, and they do their quiz. Let's go back. There's also an upload users. Again, this is based on the same type of upload that exists already in Moodle when you want to do a bulk user import. Same thing, only again, you can assign exams to the bulk users, and it sends out emails to all the users. And then there's a search user tool that we have in there. You can search for users according to the tests that they're doing. There's different, it's not just by name or last name that you can search them. There's even the ID and stuff like the what's it called? Passport work ID is what we meant.
The single sign-on system.
Single sign-on system, yeah. Okay, and then there's different settings in there. When we go into a course, what you would know as a course, this is what it looks like. So you're used to that linear look in Moodle where you have topic 1, 2, 3, 4, the weekly format, stuff like that. That's all gone. In fact, the only thing you can do in here is add quizzes. although it is Moodle, it has all in the background, all the different activities, you can't add anything else but quizzes. And we can see here there is one quiz done. And for those who are familiar with Moodle, you can go edit the quiz on the side blocks. You go edit settings and preview and all that stuff. I took all those blocks away. Again, this is just to simplify the interface so that people know exactly where they have to click. There's no clicking here, there to get to the same thing. It's just you want to edit the settings, you click on the settings for that quiz. You want to edit the quiz, you click on edit, preview, preview, and so on. And again, depending which role you'll have, you're going to have different buttons here available to you. So for example, a grader would only have the responses button. And of course, these are disabled because no one has done the quiz yet, so we can't go grade anyone, so you can't go view that. Same thing with the settings and the edit button. Once people have started attempting the quiz, those buttons are disabled. You can't go change a quiz once people have started. And I know that's a default function in Moodle also. We just continued it here. As you can see, as an administrator, you still have all your the administration panel and everything in there. If I was just a teacher in here, I'd only have the add test and the question bank. So again, same thing as Moodle. You have your question bank, you go in there, you add your questions, and then you can add a quiz. You can duplicate your quizzes. So it's really a simplified interface using a course format that users can do quizzes with, or teachers can do quizzes with. And this is going in production in November at Glendon. And we're going to be working with both the production system that we have right now, the one written in Java, and this one for a couple of months. And we're hoping that, by March anyways, the Java version is out, it's gone.
It's not a hope, it's a
well, that's a definite, but I'm hoping way faster than that. But so there will be some tweaking to do, and the tweaking is not again with the quizzes themselves, but more with all the other functionalities where emails are sent out and so on, because there are more. Now I can't show you because there aren't any responses in these quizzes here, but inside the when you go do the corrections and view the quiz responses by the students, there's already a place where you can add comments in Moodle. We added another feature in there without touching core, where you can add more comments, and you can actually email those comments to different users. Unfortunately, I can't show you because you've got to have people who did the quiz, and we don't have any right now in this one. But that is there, and that's another feature that's really cool, and I'm really glad we managed to do it without affecting core Moodle. And basically, just so you know the technique to do that, I just created a form with jQuery. I use Ajax, and it just pops up. There was a beautiful div that was empty in Moodle that I found. I'm like, whoa, look at that! I'll stick it in there, and it's perfect. It works great, and the users who have used it so far for testing, so I absolutely rushed through this because I know we have work for time. Are there any questions? Yes.
Now that you put that into Moodle,
yeah.
Can I use one?
Absolutely.
Yes,
it's plugins. So it's a course format plugin, and it's a theme. So now I could always send you the plugin and the theme. You'd have to modify the theme for your own institution, but it's absolutely. The local plugin is really meant for York University because it attaches to the York University LDAP and things like that. So there would be some tweaking to do there if you wanted those extra functionalities. But again, for graders to receive emails, I'm using the functionality that's in Moodle already. So I didn't have to invent that.
Yeah. Now there's another thing as well. Patrick talked about how you can manually assign students to these tests. One thing that we were able to do, which was very powerful, and I think that the university as a whole is going to start looking at this, that we're actually able to integrate this system with their student information system. So when the student actually books an appointment to see an advisor or whatnot, this system now, you see this ABSW manual syncing. This is actually the part that does all the magic, where it actually goes to this, the SIS database, grabs all the information, and assigns the students to the test as predefined by the advising group or department at Glendon. So this is actually very easy to tweak, but it's extremely powerful because now it takes away time. It makes things a lot more efficient. So these are the kinds of things that if you were going to use this, you just have to tweak. But again, it's just a tweak because you have different drivers for different databases. But ultimately, you could use it out of the box.
When you assign the student, I see the connection to the test, but can you also give them access to, say, some preliminary information they need for the test? Or is it only linking to a quiz, Moodle quiz?
So I'll start. So essentially what ends up happening is that when you assign, so when you create a quiz or a test, you can create as many sections as you want in the test. So if you have preliminary information you want to provide to students, when they write the test, you could put an introductory page where they have that information. The other thing that this does is that it actually emails a student like an email, a message, that contains any sort of information that the department who created the test would like to communicate to the student. So for example, if this is a Spanish entrance exam, and you wanted to tell the student, these sections are mandatory, these ones are optional. If you have any questions or concerns, contact the Spanish department, not the French one. That would be in the email. And what we've been able to create is what Patrick just shows you here, is that the creator of the test can actually go in and create their email templates. So that whenever the test is assigned, whether manually or automatically, this is the email that's being sent. And because at Glendon, it's bilingual campus, it has to be the French and the English at the same time.
And also, if you look at this one, Aladin was mentioning the connection with the SIS system and how it sends out emails automatically and so on. This is a system where they can go create exactly the emails that they want. And according to the sections that they applied for, they'll only get that portion of the email. So, for example, if someone has applied for the EPLA test and the SPLA test, they'll get both messages. They won't get the EPLA and all the other stuff. Okay, so this is for the one attached to the SIS, and then you have notifications here where you can add your own messages and you can assign them to different tests. And that gets sent out to the students. Absolutely. That's the one thing we tried to do is, see, the other system, the way it was built, was all hard-coded. So if they wanted to change these message or add a new message, we had to go in and program the message and so on, which is a pain. That's not fun. So we try to make it so that the users or the administrators can do whatever they want. And if they need another feature in here, they let us know, we'll add the feature. But what we're trying to get away from is us doing constant work that's basically administrative work.
Just to add on that as well, the duplicate test button is actually extremely useful for departments because every year they tweak the test slightly. But then when you have the test that's been already administered and you have responses, you don't really want to touch that test. But if you want to do a little tweak, what they use is they duplicate the test, they change that question, and that test becomes the active test. And then we have an archive or a history of all the tests and all the responses that we have to keep for different reasons. So yeah, I think it's very useful in that sense. Any other questions? So I think that we're very near to 12:05, but I think if you can put back the slide. So if any one of you is interested in getting the code or has questions about how to integrate it to their Moodle, you can definitely contact us here. These are our email addresses, and just reach out to us, and we're more than happy to share what we know about this and even the code. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
mon tour de vous accueillir pour cet après-midi. Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Aladin. I'm the IT Director of Polytechnic Montreal. It's my pleasure to welcome you this afternoon. Before our session, I have some information to give you. First of all, again, I would like to thank all the sponsors. Le groupe remercier nos commanditaires encore une fois. Bien sûr, l'Université de Montréal qui nous accueille, Lambda Solution, Open to Know, e-learning expert, et Virus, Explorer, Red Speaker, SBI Solution, et ADTE qui sont au pièces du deuxième. Also, a couple more information. We have people with orange tie that are there to help you through the conference. We forgot to mention that this morning. So, il y a 5 personnes parmi nous qui ont des tailles oranges qui sont là pour vous aider de façon technique. Donc, Sylvain, Alexandra, Olivier, David, Melvin. So, don't hesitate to talk to them if you need anything through the conference. It's my pleasure to introduce you our speaker, Jeff Olson. Jeff is from Brighton Langues. He is working with more than 30 public schools in the Maritimes, and he will talk about what he's doing with them. Donc, c'est un plaisir de vous présenter Jeff Olson de laboratoire Brilliant, donc Brighton Langues, qui est basé au Nouveau-Brunswick, travaille avec plus de 30 écoles là, dans les Maritimes. Jeff will talk to you about integrating technology with curricula in classroom. So, Jeff.
Bonjour tout le monde, c'est un plaisir d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui. J'ai grandi à 30 minutes ici à Cornwall, dans l'Ontario et Montréal. Qui vient de Montréal, c'est là et qui parle seulement le français. Who here only speaks English? And how many people online are wearing PJs and eating popcorn right now? So, Brilliant Labs, yes, we're a nonprofit organization working in Atlantic Canada, but we're more than that. We are a grassroots movement, and I want to take you through the genesis of how Brilliant Labs came to be, what we do, and how we do it. Bit of a miscommunication. We work with way more than 30 schools across Maritime. We're into the hundreds of schools, helping thousands of teachers, and working with 10,000s of students. We've got 30-some maker spaces in the public school system, so maybe that's where the 30 got in there. So it's all about integrating technology. Dans les salles de classe, on a pour intégrer les technologies. Je ne parle pas des iPads, des sites web, et je ne parle même pas de Moodle. So Moodle is a great technology tool to be able to do classrooms and all the wonderful things you guys are doing with it. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the hands-on technology that's student-centered, and then more hands-on product-based learning for the students. The genesis. So one magical evening, a few years ago, January 13th, January 11th, 2013, c'était un moment magique. Il y a un entrepreneur qui s'appelle David Alston. And David Alston is a very well-known Atlantic Canadian entrepreneur. And he got up on stage because he just won a big Entrepreneur of the Year award for the Maritimes. And in the audience was the New Brunswick Premier at the time, Dave Albert. And a lot of our education, whether from coast to coast, sometimes industry will shake a fist at the government saying, you're not producing the level of students that we need to work in our companies. Well, this gentleman took a similar approach, but instead of just shaking a fist at the government, he gave up himself. So in an all-star move, he said, okay, we need to get computer programming or coding back into the curriculum. Not just that, I'm going to do everything I possibly can and spend every waking moment I have over the next many years or however long it takes to make sure it happens. So from here, you can count on me to help you. And he's got a huge network of friends. So ça a pris peut-être quelques mois. Ils ont assemblé une équipe, puis on fait un documentaire. Ce documentaire-là s'appelle Code Kids. So if you're online, you can look at Code Kids. Hour-long documentary about a journey that a small group of people from New Brunswick took to Estonia and Finland. Alors, ils sont allés visiter ce qui se passait en Europe, en Estonie puis en Finlande. Puis ce qu'ils ont réalisé, c'est qu'on utilise la technologie comme un outil pour que l'élève puisse résoudre un problème. Alors, la technologie, c'est pas le but ultime. C'est pas d'enseigner à l'élève comment utiliser la technologie, mais de permettre à l'élève de découvrir comment utiliser la technologie lui-même pour être capable d'accomplir son but. So, in this way, technology is not the end, it's more the means, it's the tool. Alors, ils sont revenus au Canada après leur voyage. And that documentary aired on CBC, Maritimes first, and then it went to all of CBC, I think, last July. Uh-oh, I lost communication. Any suggestions? Uh-oh. Sont venus chez eux, au Nouveau-Brunswick. Puis qu'est-ce qu'ils ont très appris, c'est que oui, la programmation en informatique, computer coding, oui, c'est important. Alors, quand je parlais avec Roger, je ne suis pas oublié dans la foule, mais en tout cas, quand moi j'étais au secondaire, au début du secondaire, on apprenait comment créer, comment programmer, comment créer nos propres programmes et logiciels. Mais je pense qu'en temps qu'on avait les CTO, une 16e année en Ontario, quand j'étais là, so great during our OACs, all of a sudden there was like a shift, and it was very visible. We went from students learning how to create with technology to students learning how to use somebody else's technology. In this case, it was Microsoft, it was Corel. They were learning how to use all these programs, which is fantastic because they were very useful. We do a bunch of stuff with it. But the essence of being able to create was gone. We were now becoming consumers rather than the producers. So when they got back, they realized, okay, coding back in the curriculum, great thing, but there's more to it than that. We want kids to really be inspired, to be creative, to be innovative, because in Maritimes, we're in a bit of a situation over there. There's a huge brain drain between, I think, 18 to 42. A crazy percentage of our adults are heading west. And so it's tearing apart families, it's breaking apart communities. Parents are coming in and out every second week, spending a few days with their kids and flying back out because the Maritimes can't sustain its own people with an economy that's functional. It's heavily reliant on natural resources. There's lots of ebb and flow on a whole debate when it comes to pipelines coming through New Brunswick. So what we found ourselves in was a perfect storm. Alors, ce qui se passait, c'est qu'il y avait beaucoup de situations, il y avait un nouveau gouvernement qui était en place, il y avait l'État de analyser les situations, les choses dans les victimes, ça fait dur présentement. Alors, ce qu'on a décidé de faire, c'est on va se mettre ensemble, puis on va trouver une solution. Puis on va commencer à investir dans nos jeunes. Parce que si on peut planter les graines de créativité, d'innovation chez nos jeunes, tu sais, dans 10 ans, 20 ans, 30 ans, on est capable de s'enlever du périn qu'on est présentement. So, I was working in PEI. I was working on my master's a few years ago, and I was writing this big, long-winded paper. It was my first master's paper. I didn't know what to think or do, so it was a book. And in it, I talked about the importance of the relationship between the public sector and the private sector in trying to promote creativity in students and getting that hands-on kind of feel. I had no clue this gentleman, David Alston, even existed, let alone that he just challenged the premier of his province to do something very similar. There's another lady in Nova Scotia, her name is Thibaudeau. She's, I don't want to be worried her age, but she's in her 50s, entrepreneur as well. She bought herself a 46-foot truck and outfitted it with everything from robotics to computers so that she would drive this huge truck in Cape Breton and go from school to community to school to other community, getting kids to come on her big truck and learn about robotics, computer programming, and just making stuff. So we had all these different people doing these awesome little different things in different areas in the Maritimes. So they kind of, my wife at the time heard on CBC an advertisement about this Code Kids documentary. And she emailed them right away. They sent me an email. I came in for an interview. So I went from PI to St. John to do an interview for the documentary. I was all excited because I wasn't assuming it's a current PI. And I go back, I'm all excited, I'm talking to my principal, can we send some pictures or some videos of what we're doing in the classroom and in the school? Because they're not sure they've got time in the timeline to produce the video documentary, that they'll have enough time to send a film crew. Alors, c'est là que j'ai rencontré un collègue. Le directeur disait, oh, oh, ça fait la permission de passer l'entrevue pour ce documentaire-là. So the quick phone call to the superintendent, and no, you can't release footage, and what did you talk about? And apparently there's an unwritten rule that any teacher in TDI that wants to talk to the media should talk to the micromanager above, and I can say that now because I'm not getting a paycheck from them, to clear things, to make sure that we're not going to say anything that might put the government or the school board in hot water. Well, I don't know. It's not the kind of person I was. Alors, je suis pas trop content avec mon employeur. Alors, les applicatifs m'ont donné l'occasion de faire avec les autres, comme voir ce que je faisais dans la salle de classe avec les animatifs. Ensuite, on a recruté un enseignant en 7e année qui faisait des mathématiques. It's kind of a kismet almost. So we had the ear of the government in New Brunswick. The private sector was fully behind what we were doing. They were giving us resources, opening doors, and people were listening to us because they're fearful of the media and what the private sector they might do. And so we showed up. It was basically all embracing. What we found was that the teachers wanted more of what we had to give. And so let's get into some of that. So coding and maker education equals a new economy. Does it really? We hope so. Because if we can introduce our children to how to code, comment créer avec la technologie, comment faire la programmation, et ajouter un peu l'idée de l'apprendre en faisant, là, on espère que c'est le centre apprendre qui va développer ce qui se passe avec notre économie dans les métiers. So it's almost spirit of undertaking. And when I talk about entrepreneurship for this new economy that's kind of supported by coding and maker ed, I'm not necessarily talking about creating little capital sheep to fuel a capitalist machine. It's more that whole spirit of undertaking. To use your critical thinking skills and say, oh, look, there's a problem, let's fix it. And maybe technology will help us fix that. So rather than kids spending hours and hours, I did a survey with my grade 6 classroom, and on average, those 6 hours a night, they're either on YouTube, Facebook, or on video games. So you can't really compete with that. And at school, a lot of the conversation is dominated with what had happened on Facebook and YouTube and whatever they played their video games. I remember even a grade 2 classroom I taught once, they knew all about World War II because his home situation allowed him to play a war game where all the Nazis were zombies and he had just sniped Hitler in the head the night before. And it was kind of like, this is what we're dealing with. So it's time to change that. So changing world. Has anybody here ever seen the video Shit Happens? It's a video that came out probably about 7 years ago. Je did dans une expérience de montrait tout ce qui se passait l'avenir, puis on n'a aucune idée de ce qui va se passer. Right? We're preparing our students for jobs that don't even exist yet. So what does that mean? And I looked around the auditorium, and those 600 teachers, I'd say 90% of them were all dejected. Like, oh man, why do I even bother? I don't know why I'm going to teach when they're telling me that my students, when they graduate, are going to be entering a world that this education system is not preparing for. Well, there's a few of us that saw that as an opportunity. Because we have an idea of what's coming. It's not completely like blind luck. We get to shape our own destiny. So here's some of the things that Glendon Labs tries to promote in schools. So planting those seeds and to be able to kind of prepare them for this future. Because it's not necessarily unpredictable. You know there's going to be robots around. Yarrow Code gave the opportunity to some kids in New Brunswick. Are you familiar with Yarrow Code? It's a worldwide movement where they try to get every child to try at least 1 hour of computer programming in the first week of December. And so they went to Tech Shack with a celebrity. It was Ashton Kutcher. And he actually did a very good job. And he scared those students because he said in 20 years there's going to be 2 types of people in the world. Those that know how to create robots, and those that get replaced by robots. Alors imaginez ça, les jeunes au secondaire qui avaient gagné un prix, puis Ashton Kutcher a expliqué qu'il va avoir deux types de personnes dans le futur. Le type de personne qui va se faire remplacer par un robot, ou le type de personne qui peut créer un robot. Puis dans notre économie dans les maritimes, on a la pêche, on a les forêts, on a tout les patates. C'est des industries qui vont ajouter et remplacer parce que c'est du travail, c'est fait. Ça va se faire remplacer et développer. L'intelligence artificielle. Alors, we talk about robotics, autonomous vehicles, drones. Amazon's talking about sending drones to deliver packages, and hopefully people in the South don't start shooting them down. But the idea is that programming is behind most of what we see here. Naturally, I say that every single thing there is touched by programmer coding. So artificial intelligence, obviously, autonomous vehicles, even Apple's coming out with car in a couple of years apparently, drones, software, mobile applications, desktop applications, web apps, the hardware part, we're talking systems. Your phone has probably 3 to 4 different little computers in there that's working. We're talking about at lunch how the phones we have in pockets now have more power, computational power, than probably all computer systems combined for the Apollo rocket that took us to the moon. That was only 40-some years ago. Energy, sustainable ways of creating energy, from solar to wind and hydro, all that kind of stuff, to not rely on the fossil fuels. The Internet of Things, Internet des objets, je vous avais déjà entendu ça, but they're saying that there's going to be over 20 trillion devices that are going to be interconnected within the next decade or two. So there's a whole ecosystem that comes with that. Virtual reality. Alors, la réalité virtuelle, c'est immense. Mark Zuckerberg a investi 6 milliards de dollars pour acheter une compagnie qui s'appelle Oculus Rift. C'est pas simplement pour jouer des jeux vidéo. On peut s'asseoir peut-être avec un copain d'ici l'année prochaine, quand ça sort au mois de janvier, sur la tête now, vous allez avoir une conversation avec quelqu'un qui habite à Vancouver. So creating virtual worlds is going to be huge. There's opportunities for simulations. There's even, imagine those that are paralyzed or on a sick bed to be able to, even in the winter when you get the blues, to be able to put on a virtual reality kind of goggles, whatever you want to call it, headset, and live wherever you want, however you want. 3D printing. A lot of people think, okay, 3D printers, well, it's already a $1 million industry, and they don't work very well. They're not very reliable. Trust me when I say this, because we've put hundreds of these 3D printers in schools all across the Maritimes. We've tried 5 different companies. They're not plug and play. They're not there yet. Even the fancy MakerBot ones, they're $3,500 a piece. That don't last more than 6 months. But it's coming. But what we try to tell students is that start thinking about the materials that you use for the 3D printing. They're already printing food, right? They got a paste that tastes like meat, a paste that tastes like bread, a paste that tastes like something else, and they'll print you a little hamburger, and sounds delicious, doesn't it? In China, they're printing concrete buildings. So they'll lay railroad tracks in this huge printer. Will just print building after building. And it'll move the whole railroad track over a kilometer, and it will come back, and then we wonder where all the world's aggregates is going. Wearable electronics. Les technologies métal, on pense à Google Glass, on pense à la montre Apple. J'ai oublié de mentionner, au fur et à mesure qu'on va, si vous avez des questions, si vous avez la main. So if anybody got questions as we go along, please put your hand. So wearable electronics, we think Google Glass, we think Apple Watch, but it's more than that. It's integrating technology within everything that you wear, from your shoes to your shirts. And I'll talk about a project that the school is doing with their hoodies a little later, but all of the electronics and the computational power that we see around us is going to be closely integrated. We were talking at lunch about how I did a session in Truro, Nova Scotia with 60 kids from across Nova Scotia. And out of 12 groups that come up with this business idea to answer a solution to a problem either with the environment, that can help people, that could either fashion. And 3 of the 12 groups were just fine. And they want to produce this product, which was a computer chip that they would implant, and like language translation chips, and all see the dark chips. And apparently these kids have no problems whatsoever thinking of the future where computer chips are embedded in their brains. I had an issue with that, but I'm not that. Aerospace. We're sending a human to Mars by what, 2021, 22, 26, you know how long it'll take, and then beyond. So it's going to be a multi-billion trillion dollar industry. The private sector is getting involved. Why not prepare our youth today so that they can benefit from this whole movement? And rather than spending money in the States to take us to a space station, why not take off from a rocket somewhere in Canada, if not in Canada? So how did we get there? Dans les écoles, on essaie de prévoir la programmation informatique, les tâches de fabricants, les chariots de fabricants, l'apprentissage, la pédagogie active, et essayer d'engager le plus de monde qu'on peut. So through computer programming, makerspaces, maker cards project, or problem-based learning, and through a common gaming platform, we're trying to offer this grassroots energy to all the different little communities throughout the Maritimes that want to learn how to create rather than consume. So it's kind of guided a little bit by these educational philosophers and professors and doers. John Dewey, known for his Dewey Decimal System, well, it was more about just finding library books. Lev Vygotsky, Seymour Papert, and Benjamin Bloom. So John Dewey, yes, he authored the decimal system and helping us find books in the library. But it's my pedagogical creed, which I think was in 1897, he shared that schooling should be social, it should be authentic, and it should relate to what they're doing at home. How many of you know of a 2-year-old kid that can use an iPad? Most 2-year-old kids can innately control an iPad. So this is their reality. What happens when they go to school? And iPads are great. I'm not talking about iPads today because they're great for consuming. Maybe writing a few things in a little doodle, but it's really creative. So that's part of that. Lev Vygotsky, the whole constructivism movement. Some say, why don't you include Piaget? Well, Piaget was more about the self and how you can construct understanding through your own actions and your own understanding. Whereas Vygotsky, not only was his own proximal development, but also the social constructivism. And what I'm going to share with you a little later, especially with the coding and the makerspaces, it's a very social environment where kids are creating understanding based on what little expertise these little mini experts are all bringing to the table. The next one is Seymour Papert. This gentleman worked at MIT, amazing gentleman. In the probably 60 years ago, in the 1960s, he was one of the first to say, okay, we can enhance student learning with the use of computers. And everybody laughed at him. Crazy thoughts. Back then, the computers were huge, but at the same time, he persevered. He wrote a book called Mindstorms. It's like a seminal work, and it influenced a whole slew of different ways of creating technology in the classroom, and heavily the whole maker ed movement through these technology. And Benjamin Bloom, who's probably best known for, for Bloom's taxonomy. And there's been, everybody's seen Bloom's taxonomy before. There's like an older version and a newer version. I don't like that they took synthesizing out of the newer version, but we see here, even if you're doing computer programming, remembering the syntax and the processes and all that kind of stuff, that takes the least amount of energy. Understanding the concepts so that you can apply it takes a little bit more brain power. And then if you can analyze and evaluate what you're doing either with your robot, why is my robot not doing what I want it to do? Because the robot will always do its own. It's always a human that's making the mistake of programming. And then eventually get into creating. So make the parents be birth because creating takes the most brain power, but it kind of technology takes us through that. So coding. Computers only understands ons and offs, zeros and ones. So we need different computer languages and compilers and all that kind of stuff so that the machine can understand the code. This is an awesome infographic that was released. And I know it's too small to see, but I'll kind of summarize it for you. The idea is that even a Chevy Bolt car, the car from Chevy, required, I think, 10.6 million lines of code. That's more than the Boeing Dreamliner that only took like 1 million lines of code. And as we go on and on and on, there's over 50, they estimate, 6 million developers across the world, there's over 15 billion lines of code generated every single day. That demand will rise and rise and rise, especially with some of the industries that I was kind of mentioning with the wearables that are coming out, Steam and everything else. There's already jobs that can be filled. There's a humongous company in America, I won't say the name, but they deal in fossil fuels, who's been trying to hire a lead for over 300 days. They can't fill the position. Why? Because the talent isn't necessarily there. And the second you are talented enough to be able to do that kind of stuff, Microsoft, Google, Apple, SpaceX, Tesla, right? They're all Amazon. They're all fighting for the same skill sets. GM is going to rock a hard place. we've been in conversations with them about how they can start to support grassroots coding, because GM and Oshawa has just been, I guess, focused to be the hub of software development for all the GM products. But now they're going to be competing with Microsoft and Google and all the big players for 200 to 300 new programmers in the next couple of years. So they've got to start kind of cultivating their own crop of programmers. So we're looking at salaries that are crazy for an average coder. And no, computer programming is not for everybody, and everybody's got this crazy idea that a coder is somebody in a basement with a bag of chips and a can of Red Bull and can't go to bed for 24 straight hours until he solves the problem. Well, I found out something very interesting last week. The University of New Brunswick, and they haven't published this research yet, so it's not official, and granted, the sample size is also quite small, but they tried to find a correlate between graduating high school and the marks, how that affected or influenced their graduation rate of their computer science program. So we think math, right? It's an obvious choice. If you're really, really good at math, chances are you're good at computer programming. 0.5 is a correlate to that. Sciences, another good one. 0.54. Language arts, 0.58. So we see a trend here. And can you guess as to what the #1 subject was coming out of high school with good marks, and how that could have been an indicator to a successful computer science graduate at UNB Fredericton? Close. Drama. 0.6. Why? Well,
No dubbing.
The idea behind being part of a drama production, you got to get your timing right. You have to understand how all the parts move and play together. It's, yes, you got to memorize your lines, but you also have to know the whole entire feel and vibe, and all the set design and the production values and all the design elements and all the coordination that goes. So you get a whole ensemble, I guess, of the bigger picture. Alors oui, apparemment, les informatiques, c'est propice à graduer avec succès d'un programme de automatique. So here are some of the computer programming languages. There are hundreds. These are just a few of the ones, actually these are most of the ones that we're promoting in Maritimes right now. So Scratch, that's a very visual programming language. I've got more information on it until later. It's designed by MIT. It's designed for kids from kindergarten up, even younger. So you're able to start visually dragging and dropping blocks of different color that make things do different things. So you get the whole process of how to computer program. C and C++. C++ is used with Unreal Engine, which allows some of the high schools that we're working with to develop high-level based video games, even some for the virtual reality. C and C++ can also be used with Arduino microcontrollers to program robotics. C#, that's a Microsoft kind of language, so it helps some of the schools develop some apps. Yes, you can put Windows Phone with it or not. Not that many people have them. Also for something called Unity 3D. Unity 3D is a very easy way for high school students, even middle school students that I'm working with in Canada, to design their own 3D video games with Oculus Rift and eventually with Microsoft HoloLens. Have you seen the HoloLens? Pretty wild. It kind of takes virtual reality, but it mixes it with augmented reality. So I suggest you Google HoloLens. Python, it's been around for a while. Raspberry Pi, which is a standalone microcontroller that can also be used as a very cheap $30 computer. So if the school or the classroom's having a hard time finding computational devices, sometimes $30 Raspberry Pis, and you can program robotics on the stuff in Python. Obviously, you get web stuff, so we can also success in JavaScript, which is more active. Java, we've got some great 7A students learning Java in middle schools in Fredericton, and they asked to compete at the high school and university level Java competition that UNB St. John was putting together, and they said, no, you're too young. So we're going to keep working with the university to see if these kids can partake in the larger competition. Coincidentally, two of the kids that did want to enter the high school competition, they ended up winning the Scratch coding competition. But the difference is huge. I was walking to the Deputy Minister of Education with two in New Brunswick, the Anglophone one, through Makerspace at George Street Middle School, and the got up in the Scratch competitions in grade 8, you had programmatically explained the Fibonacci sequence using Java. And the minister was kind of blown away, right? Like, you type in any random number and give you the Fibonacci, we're getting the sequence, and the Fibonacci sequence was there. Not familiar with it. I guess it's a universal kind of formula that explains how many branches are in a tree or how many petals on a flower. It's wonderful stuff. Anyway, he figured out a way using Java to create an app that explained all that depending on what number you hit, and there was all these beautiful things that pop up. I asked the obvious question, trying to promote the whole movement in front of the deputy minister. Does your math teacher know what you're doing? Oh, I don't like math. Yeah. Swift Objective-C, so if you want to get into Apple iOS devices, we've got a high school in Moncton that's working with the tech lead there to develop an iOS watch app. JSON that helps with the server stuff, so same people that are using Swift Objective-C, the app has to pull information from the server, so they're running JSON to be able to do that relational database stuff. And we've got some working on web apps with Ruby on Rails. So obviously that's not a complete list, but those are the ones that I'm aware of that there are schools using from elementary to high school right now in Maritimes. And we're hoping it'll increase. Our code. So 133 million students last year, 133 millions d'élèves de jeunes ont participé à une heure de programmation l'année passée. C'est la première semaine du mois de décembre. Cette année, je pense que c'est du 8 décembre au 15 peut-être. So I don't know if any parents in the crowd, or teachers, or educators, or people who know kids, or if you know teachers, get them to at least try for an hour. Puis la beauté de l'heure de code, c'est que vous n'êtes pas obligé d'être expert. Tout ce que vous avez besoin, c'est de désarmer la salle d'ordinateur, mettre le jeune devant l'ordinateur pour une heure. And it's all self-guided tutorials. And you start with like some Angry Bird stuff, and then you go to Flappy Bird, and then you go to Frozen, remember those two princesses, Anna and somebody? And you can kind of, it's very visual for the kids, and it's self-guided. So ourcode.com/CA, it'd be great if you were to get somebody to register in a classroom, or you know some kids that want to try it, they could register themselves. New Brunswick, population 700 000 habitants qu'on a. Au Nouveau-Brunswick, on a fini en deuxième place au Canada l'année passée. So for a small province in New Brunswick with 700,000 people, we finished second overall in the country, only behind Ontario, and it wasn't by a lot. It was by maybe 1,000 classrooms. For amount of classrooms that participated in bringing coding to the students. So that was pretty successful. And this year we're in New Brunswick specifically. I know we're working with Nova Scotia and they're very competitive. But one of those two provinces is going to hope to be able to claim that it's the first province in the country that every single school participate at some level with the hour code. Scratch. Alors pour les jeunes, c'est super. C'est très visuel. Les blocs de différentes couleurs font différentes choses, comme le plus le mouvement, le violet c'est l'apparence, les événements. And the beauty of Scratch too is that not only is the visual very accessible for the young kids, but you can also do some pretty crazy stuff using the webcam or actually read your body, like almost like a Microsoft Kinect. It won't read the depth, but it'll read where it is. And so, if this was created by MIT, so it's not just for little kids, it can be used by a lot of people. But the beauty is we've got little kindergarten kids in Edmonton programming robotics using Scratch. So when you think of that for just a moment, you know, 5 ans, 6 ans, sont à programmer la robotique. Where are they going to be in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? Where are they going to be when they get to your universities? What kind of Moodle content will those professors have to be uploading 20 years from now when these little 5-year-olds are already learning how to program robotics? And that's the whole goal of this grassroots movement, is let's get them started young. Hummingbird Kit, another awesome little resource where all of a sudden you can start creating life-size robots out of cardboard and recycled material like bottles and old wood, and adding little servos. And I know one time I spoke to the street, and girls are loving this stuff. So traditionally we said, oh, girl, what are we going to do about getting into IT, computer sciences? And the elementary and middle school girls are loving this stuff. One group won the prize at a STEAM Expo because they created a huge life-size robot. And when you approached it, you actually had to back up because it would swing its arm up to say hi. And then it would start singing and start dancing, and it's pretty neat. Raspberry Pi, this one is called the Space Pi. There's a little Raspberry Pi project with a bunch of sensors called the Space Pi. That's going up to the International Space Station in December. So a lot of students in Nova Scotia Untitled will be able to experiment with the same piece of technology that astronauts are playing with in the space station. And literally, the Raspberry Pi is about 30, 40 bucks, the hat maybe 20 bucks, it's about $50. And all you got to do is plug in an old keyboard with USB and a monitor, and you've got a little computer that you program using Scratch called GPIO. Mindstorms. Got a name from Seymour Papper's book, Mindstorms. Lego is awesome. Nobody hears Lego, right? It's a very accessible way for kids to start making stuff and then programming it very visual as well. There's also some Arduino microcontroller shields you can put on microcontrollers, Arduino, where you can start plugging in micro sensors to do something with robotics and Arduino. But the idea here is, okay, it's great to have an after-school program in robotics, and to the first Lego League, that's great, but let's use it in math. So if you're doing a unit on angles, rather than pull up the old textbook and the what do you call that in English? Protractors, and do 100 examples of all types of different angles, let's create a space mission with a robot. So show them a video how the 7 minutes of terror trying to land the rover on the planet Mars, and then give them the building blocks, the Lego kits, to create a robot that's got to navigate an obstacle course to collect a fictional sample of ice. Well, we tried it, and the students loved it. How many times have you tried to give a child a task, and if they tried it 3 times and failed every time, they gave up? Well, with this particular class of grade 6 students, we did a geometry unit with robotics, and there was some groups, they had to get on their knees, they still had to they had to figure out either the perimeter, the power of the motor, the distance traveled, or the number of rotations on the wheel, so you're integrating measurements as well, the angles that you want the robot to turn, but if you've got the power of the motor at 7%, and you're not telling it to stop, do a dead stop, then it'll kind of coast a little bit, so you have to adjust all that kind of stuff. And there's probably a series of about, the shortest one was 12 different angles that they had to calculate. 3 of the teams took about over 100 attempts to calculate all the angles, measure everything out, go to the computer, program it, create a little algorithm, download it to the robot, try again, 107 times. Halfway through, the teacher was going to stop them after 2 days because it was taking too long. But what would that have taught the students? Don't persevere, don't be engaged, it's okay, we'll give you the answer. But they kept going. And after 107 times, they want to stand a cup. Do you think those kids are ever going to forget how to calculate an angle? If you're thinking 12 or more angles, and I think their path had more, had 18 different angles, 107 times, they're not going to forget anytime soon. Kobe from Microsoft, again, very visual, you can create 3D worlds, you can even create your Microsoft controllers, I think you're using multiplayer options, all drag and drop stuff. Project Spark, same thing from Microsoft, it's just the next generation of the Kobe Game Lab, and that works with Xbox One and Windows 8.1 and above. It's very, it's beautiful, it's immersive, it's very vibrant, and same thing, a drag and drop kind of interface. Biswick, this was born in the Maritimes. It's actually pretty cool. It allows for developing mobile apps. Alors, cette application mobile est réussie to the capteurs. So, you can integrate stuff from online, but also some hardware components like sensors, humidity sensors. I know they created in Moncton using just this free software for the students. They created an app that could control a greenhouse, and it was reading in live time all the data. Arduino is another kind of integrated development environment that we're installing with computers and the Maritimes. It allows the Arduino stuff, the wearable electronics, Spark Fun Inventors kits, they're called, Redbox, that uses C or C++ language. So even we think those little kindergarten kids are doing these Lego we-dos, and then here, this is a precursor to what they're doing in university, but we're putting them in middle schools. And a lot of professors at our universities are donating their time to Skype and use what else to help support those middle school and those high school students when they're having problems with it. Because let's face it, the teachers don't know this stuff. Alors, vraiment, c'est le temps, c'est ça, le site d'éducation qu'on essaie de promouvoir, c'est où l'enseignant se met dans une posture d'apprenant. Il va se mettre à genoux à côté de l'élève, qui va poser des questions au lieu d'y donner des réponses. So rather than the whole Paulo Freire banking model education where my job is to put my wonderful fountain of knowledge in your heads, your job is to remember it, and then maybe a year and a half down the road when you get that one little split second where you have to remember it, maybe you will, maybe you won't. Instead, instruct your own understanding, get a guide, get a facilitator, and just ask the questions. There's a teacher in Riverview, his name is Ian Fogarty, and he does conferences all over the world, from Colorado to Chicago, and he's the first to admit that where his students think he's an absolute genius, he knows nothing about this. So some of the students are working on these bionic prosthetic hands with, we provided a dual extruder printer that had like a dissolvable filament, so when you printed out the prosthesis and dipped it in a solution, it would kind of, all the dissolvable filament would kind of disappear, and then you could move the hand, and then with an Arduino, with a bunch of servos, and the students would go up to him and ask a question. He had no clue what they were even talking about, but he'd turn it around and say, well, how would you solve it? And then they go back, and they figure out the answer, and they say, Mr. Buggy, you're a genius. And he is, because his style of teaching is unlike what most of us grew up with, which was, okay, my job's to remember, your job is to tell me the answer. It can't be like that. Unity 3D, which I mentioned, will help with HoloLens and Oculus Rift virtual reality development. It's also easy to port over to different platforms, Android, iOS, those types of things. We've got school working on a virtual reality Viking violent game. But anyway, they're engaged and they're learning, they're designing all the 3D objects, they're designing the sounds, the sound effects, all the landscapes. Everything goes into the game. They're learning C# programming to be able to code it and being able to integrate it with the Oculus Rift. And imagine the joy they have after every hour when they're done their little class that they can put the Rift on after school or whatever and then live in this little world that they've created themselves. Unreal Engine, there's some schools in northern New Brunswick that are working with Unreal Engine. And this is the one that all the huge AAA multi-million-dollar productions from Silicon Valley and elsewhere, even Ubisoft here in Montreal, I'm sure uses Unreal Engine for some of their games. But there are high school kids that are learning to use this stuff to create their own worlds. We'll see them in the picture later, but there's a group of girls that tried to convince their language arts teacher to create, ils voulaient créer un monde de Molière en utilisant la réalité virtuelle. Alors, il y avait un affaire à faire pour un livre qu'il y avait eu de Molière, puis ensuite, ils ont essayé de convaincre l'enseignant de la classe qu'ils pouvaient, au lieu de créer un rapport comme à 30 pages, s'ils pouvaient créer un monde virtuel au lieu. Alors, c'est ça, l'intégration de la technologie. On ne dit pas que, OK, tous les élèves dans les provinces maritimes vont apprendre comment utiliser Unity 3D puis apprendre à faire la programmation C#, mais on veut que, comme les études d'apprentissage, on veut que l'élève se sentent comme doivent apprendre le prochain résultat d'apprentissage pour que, right, they're engaged. If we have a problem where these two young girls want to create a virtual world for this report, they had themselves to learn how to use Unity 3D. Huge support online, a lot of tutorials that are free. Learn how to use C#, create their own objects, and create this virtual world based on the time of my dad. It's doable. Makerspaces. Okay, yeah, so we do 4 things, right? From the coding schools, how many the time? 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to go really fast because that was only like a third of the presentation. Makerspaces are very, very cool. We've got everything from like tools, like woodworking, welding in some schools, next to like knitting and embroidery, and then electronics, robotics, 3D printers, and the kids, and there's a common space in the middle of every makerspace. These want to be a very social experience for them. And so imagine combining some art with some woodworking, with some electronics, and making yourself a smart bench, for example. And you're answering curriculum expected or curriculum d'apprentissage, curriculum outcomes, thank you. In math, in art, in whatever you want to do, even a video game. You can integrate art, music, language arts, math, science. We've got grade 4 students that are kind of doing, rather than writing quizzes or tests for their science class, they're doing Scratch interactive stories using Scratch to explain their understanding. Sewing machines, you think about it for adults, these are grade 4 girls, and they've got a little micro business of making pillows and selling them. And so they calculate how much fabric and per square centimeters, how much it costs them, how much thread they're using, how much electricity, how much time it takes. And in their math class, they generate a little micro business. There's even a school in Moncton that made a little micro business out of duct tape. So they buy all this duct tape in Walmart, and they make little wallets and frisbees and hair clips that turn them stick to the hair. But they calculated how much tape costs per square centimeter, how much time it takes them, and how much they should sell it for. And business is booming, apparently. So it is, yeah, it's maker spaces are pretty cool. They're literally repurposing libraries, old chemistry labs, classrooms. There's one principal in Evanston, he took a sledgehammer to a wall and made a big opening connecting his library to this empty space to create this maker space. It's pretty amazing what's happening. That same principal also climbed up in the summer and put a 20-foot radio antenna on his roof, and now his students are generating their own radio station that broadcasts throughout Acadia and Maryland. And it's also available online. So we started a pilot project where we had 7 makerspaces, one in each of the school districts in New Brunswick. And then what happened? Other schools found out, hey, we want one of those. And then the parent-owned school association started jumping in, private sector started jumping in. Now we're up to 26, either developing, or planning stages. I think it's only 5 in the planning stages. So these little makerspaces are ways for us to plant the seeds of innovation and creativity in those students so that they'll kind of start creating cool stuff. And I'll give an example later. Now we move up to Nova Scotia. There's a fair. Next week we're kind of hopefully going to be moving into pre-EI. So soon these makerspaces, you must have makerspaces in the show, but imagine a K-12 makerspace. Ever see the Sir Ken Robinson video of School Kills Creativity? Now you should go on YouTube, School Kills Creativity. It's the idea that you give a kid a paperclip and it'll come out with 1,000 applications of it. Give an adult that same paperclip, it'll come out with 3 applications of it. These makerspaces is all about giving them the tools they need to innovate and create. So yeah, green screen, 3D printers, you name it, it's there. The population, the community around are jumping into these makerspaces too. So we've got volunteers coming to help the kids make puppets, and then those puppets are going to be infused with electronics. So LEDs light up their eyes, and you push a button and you can record voices. Here, the kids are the experts helping the adults and the one next door to it. Those kids even hold their own TEDx box. It's pretty amazing. Maker cards. So those schools or communities that can't afford the big $25,000 makerspaces, we're providing them with maker cards. So at a fraction of the price, and it's you wheel it from one classroom to another, but you can still have 3D printing, wearable technologies, electronics, robotics, all kinds of stuff in there. And that's some of the stuff that goes on maker card. There's one in particular I'd like to show you. I wish I had a video for it. It's called a Makey Makey. Has anybody heard of Makey Makey? Definitely go on YouTube to see that. It takes 18 that conducts electricity and it replaces your keyboard with it. So we've got students who create 5 or 6 that are creating a nice little story with a little tree on their Scratch program, and they made a tree out of Play-Doh, so that when you touch the tree on their desk, something happens in the program. They're creating their own video games, and you can use water, lead from a pencil, metal to create your own game controllers. So it's changing the way kids are creating their own user interfaces for their programming. And what we're seeing is rather than a traditional experience of platform games where you push a button and the little guy jumps, it's changing the way the kids are coding and the interactive experiences that they want to create themselves. Project-based learning. It's at the end of the day, I'll skip all this part. 2 minutes? Okay, there's a project I want to show you. Underwater robotics. So this high school, there's this teacher, his name is Ashley Aladin. Great guy, taught math. We tried, his tech coordinator tried to convince him, he's got a pool in his school to try an underwater robot. He's like, Jamie, I don't know anything about robotics, I don't want to do this. He tried it. He loved it. The students loved it. The community loved it. The Angler Society got involved. They lived near Rishi, which is one of the prettiest, most bountiful rivers. They're able to measure turbidity and all types of things. So now they're pretty excited that they've created this underwater robot. Now those kids have created their own maker space, and they're doing some pretty amazing stuff. So I'm excited to see what happens there. Middle school students hacking their hoodies, we're putting wearable electronics, so conductive thread, and with these little microcontrollers and sensors. And so there's 3 of these hoodies being developed in teams at this middle school. And the idea is that there's a GPS chip inside of it as well, so that as they approach the school, their little emblem, their school logo will light up brighter. And as they leave the school, then it dims, right? And I think they've already thought of like different iterations, right? Like version 2, 3, 4.0, and there's going to be some degree of communication in between and amongst the hoodies, I guess, so that when there's the 3 hoodies are combined in a near space, it goes a certain color. Drones. We gave a drone to a nonprofit organization working with First Nation schools in northern New Brunswick. They're working with 5 elementary schools to do aerial pictures of watersheds and flooding zones, because those communities are prone to flooding. So they're trying to help these elementary school kids figure out the patterns and the flows and the whole environmental stewardship part. Virtual reality. Okay, so those are 2 girls for the Maya project. Collaborative project-based learning. So yes, it's great to do project-based learning, problem solving, and learning by doing, but it's great when we're in teams. Those are the 2 little girls with the little micro business up there. Entrepreneurship and cultivating entrepreneurial spirit. So at the end of the day, we're going to transform this economy that we've got in Maritimes, and maybe the wave will sweep across Canada. We've developed a program called Student Superpower Challenge. And right now, that's what I'm missing. It's happening, part of the Big Data Congress in Halifax. We've got 600 students there today. Actually, they're probably gone home now because they're an hour behind, or an hour ahead. And basically, I'm going to get the hook on. Let's go through some of the finalists from last year, and then I'll be done. They created an app for code sharing. They had over 100,000 people on Facebook liking their page. Riley from Campobello Island, 16-year-old girl, she developed a fisherman traffic bracelet, and she's in talks with this huge multi-billion-dollar telecommunications company to bring her product to the market that would help in a fast way translate the position of the fisherman when they go overboard, because she lost somebody close in her family that fell overboard. Solar-powered furnace for $500. They're creating a low-income accessible furnace that takes air, warms it with the sun, doesn't use any electricity, pushes it back. Drain power. You guys are awesome. Grade 10 boys, they won an entrepreneurial competition, and we helped provide the 3D printed stuff. They developed a prototype that captures any moving water flowing in the pipes of a house, from the pressure tank, from the tap. And a lot of people said it couldn't be done. It's been tried before, right? That adult with the 3 ideas and paperclip. They found some workarounds. It works, and they can generate enough electricity just from the drain going down. The feedback was clogging the drain. They talked to plumbers. They figured out a solution. Validation. Found in Oregon, in the States, have invested millions of dollars to take exactly this concept and do a self-sustaining kind of power for all the whole entire town's pumping system. Okay, one last one. 9 years old in the makerspace. 9 years old. Engaged. He took a shoe, cut a hole in it, put an ultrasonic sensor, a little buzzer, and programmed it with the help of an adult. So now that when his grandmother gets too close to an obstacle because she's losing her vision, it buzzes and warns her. Right? 9 years old. So by trying to plant those seeds of creativity and innovation, helping with coding, all this integrating hands-on technology, we're hoping that it's going to create a lot more of this. There's a lot of other stuff. Anyway.
Well, thank you, Jen, for joining. For those watching, there is a follow-up after this one, so please do stay if you want. For housekeeping, before I'll let you go to the next session. The next session will be also to the 4th floor this morning. So